What's up, my know-it-alls? Well, that's right. It is that time again. It's Wednesday morning, and that means Willow. So here we go. We're going to see Willow, episode 4, The Whispers of Nockmaar. The group takes refuge from the rain in Bavmorda's abandoned castle. There, Willow prepares to exorcise Graydon of the Lich's demonic influence with the help of Kit and Elora. Jade mourns over Ballantne's passing, regarding him as a mentor. While retrieving ingredients for the exorcism ceremony, Kit experiences visions of her grandmother Bavmorda, who is descended from a dark line known as the Blood of the Six. Kit learns that Bavmorda pledged allegiance to the Crone. Meanwhile, Elora experiences visions of her childbirth and subsequent mother's death. The possessed Graydon breaks free and tricks Elora into entering the High Tower, where he plans to complete the ceremony. Willow, along with Kit, Jade, and Boorman, join forces to successfully exorcise Graydon. In response, the Crone tasks the Lich and Scourge with killing the entire group except Elora. Elsewhere, the captive Airk awakes to find himself inside an abandoned city. All right, so clearly a slightly different format going on here. We handled the recap at the front end, short, sweet, to the point, kind of getting you through the thing. It's sort of a synopsis. And what I wanted to do then was actually have an opportunity to talk. So this episode's really interesting because it opens with, instead of the normal storybook style with Willow, all nice and beautiful, what it does is it ends up with a dark version of the book. It's not the nice book with a Loridanan symbol. It's a different book. It's the, they call it the, I believe it's the, Malatria. It's essentially their Willow version of the Book of the Dead. It looks just like the Book of the Dead from Army of Darkness and all those other things. I was half expecting someone to suddenly whip out with, all those special words and whatnot. And so I feel like this is one of those opportunities that they take to be really creative. And that's great because you got to do stuff like that with this. So anyway, the book opens up and you see blood coming down the pages. And in essence, what you get to kind of see is the heroes have to head into Nockmaar. So Nockmaar is going to be their home for the night while they're hoping to hopefully get over the rain, which I find interesting because the clouds and everything are sort of surrounding Nockmaar. As they're approaching and going in and whatnot, Kit recalls very acutely what her mother, Sorsha, had said. Her mother, Sorsha, had said, we have the blood of Bavmorda flowing through our veins and whatnot. And so she's very much worried as they go in. And they're going in there, of course, just to kind of wait the whole thing out. And so you find out through some telling of the thing that the story everyone's telling is that Willow and Roselle used the Fibonacci hex. So they have math in Willow's world. I'm down. And so in essence, the idea was that remember, nobody was there. Nobody saw anything. That's what I love about this episode. So this episode is clearly a memberberry episode. Also, I'm going to say this episode probably should have been episode 3. Storytelling wise, I got everything I wanted to get out of the storytelling I got here. Meaning where I normally want to find myself at episode 3. So in essence, the way these things work is because we're having shorter seasons and shorter series, you have to get everybody hooked in and move forward in that respect. And so we're going to have 8 episodes total. And by episode 4, which is literally the midway mark, episode 3 should have been this episode. They could have crammed most of the events from the previous 3 episodes into the first 2, making this one the 3rd episode. And now the 4th episode is where you get that turn into Act 2. So now here we are halfway through the series, and we're only now turning into Act 2, with a whole bunch of backstory and history that they had to lay down. Which kind of defeats the purpose in having the kids do the thing, because the point of that is so that you essentially can kind of retell and recap some story stuff as you go, but let them sort of do their own adventure. Anyway, Kit suggests, well, we're going to have to vote this and that. And she's all talking big and tough about how we're going to have to, I guess we're going to have to kill him. And Boorman's like, oh yeah, no, you go right ahead and do that. And she's like, you don't think I will? And he's like, no. It's one thing to kill a man who's trying to fight you and trying to kill you. It's another thing to kill someone who's literally defenseless. And that's, I thought that was wonderfully put. I thought that was great. And then of course that dovetails right into Jade, who just had to do that very same thing. All right. So again, it's one of those things where I like the maturity they're showing in the show. You're still getting the sort of younger sounding parlance, the CW-esque talking between the younger folk, and I'm okay with whatever. I'm not going to really sweat that too much. You do get to see a lot more of Boorman this episode, which I liked, especially a little bit of character development with him. Willow has a book. He's like, look, there's only one way to Bavmorda started, and he tells Bavmorda's backstory in that she was a regular sorceress like Rizal, like Charlindria, like anybody else, like him. She was wonderful, and she was on the path of good and light, and something happened, she turned dark, and she renounced and gave her loyalty to the Crone and dark and all the other good stuff, and became the evil person she was. And he explains she turned, and they're all eating apparently something, which I assume is like pork or something like that. And he explains that she once turned everyone into pigs. And he's like, and you turned everyone back human, right? And he's like, yeah, mostly. And so he's like, well, I'm not going to eat this anymore. It's really funny. But then you get this really interesting moment where he says, okay, this is how we're going to solve this. We got to build a poultice. We have to create a poultice of some sort. There's going to be a spell. I'm not powerful enough yet because I'm not fully charged. So we're going to have Elora help me. Meanwhile, everyone go search out the ingredients. So everyone goes to search out the various ingredients, and this is where you get this really interesting moment with Kit. Kit, while she's searching, comes across a tapestry. And in this tapestry, she faces or gets to see sort of animated the history. You hear Bavmorda's voice, which lends credence, I believe, to the notion that the actress who plays Bavmorda is still alive. She is still alive, and so she may have lent her voice to this. But you get to see her and the Crone, or representations in a tapestry illustration. But then they have this one part where you show Bavmorda sitting on top of what looks like a lion headed with eagle wings and whatnot. I think there's a fantasy name for it, and it's not a griffin. I know that, and I think it's a sphinx. And she's suddenly got the face of Kit. So Kit freaks out, backs up, the whole thing explodes into fire, and the hallway is now available. She had been sent to go find one of the ingredients they needed was essence of nightshade, and you see Elora who's like, hey, essence of possums eat essence of nightshade, so go find a brined possum belly, and then in the belly we can boil down, boom, essence of nightshade. And so she had to go find one. She did. And then so when the tapestry explodes in flames, she drops it, it smashes, and now she's like, so she's got to carry around this brined pickled possum, if you will. Hashtag pickled possum. And it's very humbling. And she's even like, oh, she's never gonna let me live this down because they actually had the ingredient. Meanwhile, Boorman is searching around, and Boorman happens to come across a door, a vault-like door, and all he wants to do is get into this door. And he admits it later to Kit. He's like, yeah, I'm totally trying to sack your grandma's abandoned castle. And he explains, you don't normally come across castles like this that are abandoned and have not been sacked before, because obviously, who's going to come to Nockmaar? Nockmaar's a cursed place. Nobody would do that. And so it's very interesting. Meanwhile, Jade is standing guard on the ramparts, watching. She's standing on the wall and she's watching for the bad guys to come. And then that's when Boorman kind of shows up to her, and they talk for a bit. And you find out Boorman is it's either going to be her or Boorman who have to end up killing Graydon if Graydon is sick and has a problem, and Graydon has to be killed, put down, if you will. And she hugs him in this really awkward and very uncomfortable moment, and you can tell he's not used to that kind. He's like, they're there. Everyone's entitled to one good solid cry per adventure, per quest, or whatever. Anyway, and it was interesting. So then, Willow and them are trying to begin some of the process, holding back this thing that's happening. And they have to do it together, and they have to say stuff together. And that's when dude starts talking. And when Graydon starts talking, first thing he does is he talks with Airk's voice. And he's like, I don't know where I'm at. I'm in a cell somewhere, this and that. And they're like, it's not really him. And again, then it switches and it becomes, what's her face? It becomes the daughter of Willow and the voice. And so the daughter of Willow's voice is like, you got to tell her, doll. You got to tell her the truth and this and that. And that makes Elora break focus and is like, you can't, why aren't you telling me? And Willow's like, if you can't be helpful, get out. And so she goes out, and there she runs into Kit. And while they're talking, Kit tries to explain to her, you did the thing you were worried about, and you did it. Meanwhile, but she doesn't get a chance to tell her that yet. So, because as they're talking, Elora starts to hear voices. I love this part so much. The voices she's hearing are specters of the past, ghosts of the past, and they have awoken something there. And it's not, you could say it's the Crone, but I think it's both worse and simpler than that. It's the essence of the nightmares of the things that are there. The magic that is there at Nockmaar has kind of brought some of these specters to life. Not real ghosts per se, but specters. And so immediately crazy things start happening. Boorman can't find stuff and is losing things. He thought he had the little thing, I believe they call it the Lux Arcana, which is what he went for at the grave of that guy at the slaughtered lamb, and he can't find it. It's gone. Walls are shifting, and at some point, Elora begins seeing. We get to see the moment from the very beginning of the movie, and what they do is they overlay the scenes. And they have the like you see Bavmorda step out of the prison cell from the very beginning of the movie, but they have her surrounded in like smoke and stuff, so it looks very like you're seeing specters or illusions of the past. And I love the way they did it. They married it super well, and it looks so great. And then you get this scene that if they didn't film new stuff, I think that it's got to be a deleted scene. But you get to see the entire moment when Bavmorda steps out and she says, find the child, kill her. Okay? And just as she's about to be killed, Bavmorda's gone, you see the guards and you see the mother's face, and they're looking and they show it. And she's like, I see my daughter, I see Elora. She's strong and grown and powerful, and she will destroy you and this and that. And it's our Elora standing there looking, and if it's a deleted scene, it is perfectly timed. 30 years later, it looks great. I believe firmly Elora, because of who she is and because of that place and the weakness in the veil, we'll call it the veil, I believe she 100% saw and looked into the past, and her mother saw her and was able, and that was like her way of, there was like some sort of way that Elora gave her mother that assurance, I'm going to grow, I'm going to be strong. It's a wonderful moment. And I was like, I flipped over. I was like, that's awesome. This is good. This was good writing. Not lazy writing like we've been getting in some of the other episodes or parts of the other episodes. This was very, very good writing. Very well done. This was fan service and member berries in its best form, because it gives us it lets us see all the pieces that they're intertying and intertwining with everything. Very well done. So then Jade is walking through the halls, and she happens across General Kale, the ghostly forms. So she sees some people, and she starts to see visions of her parents, and then General Kale. And he's got the mask, the skull mask, the whole bit. And I think they had to either, they got a voice guy to try to do some similar voice work, or they used audio clips from his voice from the thing. Because he's like, no mercy. And he's swinging his sword and they're fighting. And he's somewhat substantial. Like her sword is hitting his. So these are specters that are like existing and not existing here and not there. I really like it. And she eventually gets backed up into the lab where she eventually runs back into Kit. This is where Boorman starts banging down the door, and you do find out, oh, there's weird things happening. So they let Boorman in. Boorman rushes the princess and it's like, where is it? I know you took it. I know you had it. You're the only two that was here that I was intimate with. And she's like, intimate? What are you doing? What's going on here? And so, yeah, it's great. And then he kind of like reveals but doesn't reveal that he found the thing, the Lux Arcana. And so, but that's before they start hearing the screams and some other things. That's when Boorman sees through the window a light. Elora, after her experience, goes back, and she sees Graydon getting dressed, and he's like, Willow, the only way Willow could help me, blah, 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 was because he took it into himself, and I don't know where we have to find him. And he's really convincing. And for like a split second, I'm like, oh, maybe he's this and that, but then he's totally not. And I dig what they did here. And of course she goes up the thing, and I literally look over at Mrs. Know-It-All, and I'm like, didn't Willow say the first thing was not to go to the high tower? Like, literally, don't go to the high tower. It's the gateway to the nether realm. So then later, as they get into the thing, as they're up there in the high tower, dude reveals himself, of course, to be dirty. And he's like, yeah, no. And he's all looking like Ballantne looked. And they're ready to do this thing in terms of fighting him. And he has to, she's like, and then Willow walks in, and he's got a little bruise on his head, so obviously dude hit him, and she's like, Willow, using the flux capacitor, whatever, she can't say the name either. And so he goes, and the Graydon, controlled by the Lich, says to her, oh, the truth is, and then we see, the same way we saw the specters downstairs, we see young Willow holding the baby, and then we see Rizal do her thing, and lightning strike her, and he goes, Rizal died because of her own carelessness. It had nothing to do with him. And he's like, I won't be so careless, blah, blah, blah. And he puts the thing up and whatnot. And it's good. So they managed to put Graydon down, and they managed to, and Willow's like, because Willow uses a thing to knock her down and protect her a little bit. But every time he uses magic, he falls and he's frail, and I feel for him. I feel like his Daikini, or not Daikini, I think his body is not capable of handling the level of magic that he can channel. And that's why he's hurting. And I think that's the real reason Sorsha told him he's not going to be great. I don't think Sorsha was being mean. I think she was trying to be helpful. I think somehow she knows whether she was told something or not, but he's not strong enough to channel the powers he can channel. And so when he does, it hurts him physically. And they do that again. And so, but he manages to help. And then, so finally he's like, no, don't do it, this and that. And she takes in Graydon. And she takes in the evil that's in him into her mouth. And you see it begin to like move out of her and up into whatever this portal thing is above them. And he rescues her. And you get this really great, and even Willow's like, wow, that's great. And there's this moment where they're walking and they're leaving. She has managed through what she's doing to disperse. I believe they have dispersed and stopped whatever evil was there. And I think that Elora did that. She exorcised not only the demons from him, we also get this really interesting moment where you see Graydon and you see his past. You see his older brother, who the same actor plays, by the way. And then they de-age to the point of childhood. The current actor, it's brilliant. It looks amazing. Like if you can make an actor look like a child of themselves now, bro, that's some awesome technology for filming. But yeah, it's really great. And then you see Airk wake up, and Airk wakes up and he walks out, and there's giant statues and buildings wrecked. And Mrs. Know-It-All says to me, it's the immemorial city. And I think that's exactly what it is. The description says it's he wakes up in an abandoned city. But the truth is, I believe this is the immemorial city. It's this place that's got wreckages of whatever else. And it's kind of brilliant. So there you go. Now you know. And if knowing is half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So what is the know-it-all index for this episode? For episode 4 of Willow, the Disney series. I'm going to give this episode a 9. I'm going to give it a solid 9. I liked everything they were doing. I thought this was a wonderfully proper use and judicious use of member berries and nostalgia in the best, in service to the story that they're telling. It wasn't just for the sake of nothing. They weren't just doing it like they were walking around just seeing ghosts everywhere. Everything led to something. Every piece was important to the story they're currently telling. And it was a wonderful way of doing exposition without expositing. So there you go, man. All right. Stick around, man. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments below. Share the video. Thanks so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate you guys clicking on this video and taking the time to watch it. Love to hear what your thoughts are about the episode. Until next time, never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.